Now before we get into today's content-packed video, first I would like to give a big thanks to our sponsors at NordPass, who are really helping the channel to continue doing what we do, and are offering 1 month of NordPass Premium for free by going to nordpass.com/censoredgaming. Then if you want to keep using NordPass, you can even use the code censoredgaming10 to claim 10% off a 2-year plan. I have started to receive a lot of password hacking attempts from various accounts. Some of these I don't even own accounts for, and so making sure everything is kept safe with NordPass is a big priority for me. NordPass is able to generate passwords with customizable options that are always top-notch in security, and means no more needing to remember passwords. NordPass is from the cybersecurity experts at NordVPN, and everything within NordPass is heavily encrypted and always kept safe. And then everything is made completely seamless with its companion mobile app, plus optional extensions for browsers such as Chrome and Firefox. You can even keep secure notes for things such as product keys, Wi-Fi passwords, and important documents. Plus there's also a separate page for remembering credit card info. And furthermore, if you wanted to, you can also effortlessly import all of your old passwords from your browser into NordPass in only a few clicks. So what are you waiting for? Get a free whole month of NordPass Premium by going to nordpass.com/censoredgaming or use the code censoredgaming10 to claim 10% off a 2-year plan. With the release of Final Fantasy VII Remake finally upon us, now makes a great time to take a look at Crisis Core, which was released for the PSP back in 2008 and is a prequel to the events of the main game. And with the channel's focus on how media is changed around the world, today we'll be taking a look at 10 ways Crisis Core got changed when it was released in English. Before we get into that though, first an interesting tidbit surrounding Crisis Core's Japanese release. Most Final Fantasy games actually go through a number of revisions and edits when they get released for Western audiences, and then later get released again in Japan with the added bonus of these alterations plus perhaps some new ones. For instance, the original Final Fantasy VII had a wide range of changes when it was released in English, which is something the channel has already taken a look at. And this then led to Final Fantasy VII International being released in Japan, which contains these changes, plus a special Japanese only bonus disc full of trivia and lore called Final Fantasy VII Perfect Guide. Numerous other Final Fantasy titles have then went on to have international versions later released in Japan. And this is similar to how the Kingdom Hearts series has been handled, and having various final mix versions later released in Japan. Now back to Crisis Core, despite having numerous alterations in English and the game being a big commercial and critical success, Square Enix for some reason never gave the game the international treatment. Adding even more confusion to this situation is the fact that even Dirge of Cerberus would be re-released in Japan under the international banner, and featuring the North American and European changes. Some speculate that part of the reason for this may have something to do with copyright, and for example, Square Enix no longer having the rights to use Gackt's likeness. Gackt is a popular real-life Japanese musician, and Genesis, who is one of the main characters in the game, was modeled on, voiced by, and co-created by the musician. This, however, remains something that Square Enix has yet to speak about officially. But with that out of the way, let's delve in and take a look at number 10, removed areas. Interestingly, in the overseas release of the game, a few mission maps had their size cut down to remove parts of the map that had no treasure, as indicated by the new no entry symbols on the English maps. For some of these maps, the player would have to stealthily sneak past the enemy objectives to reach them, and so perhaps there was some concern of players doing this and wasting their time. Number 9, Goddess Statue. In the Japanese version of the game, the Goddess Statue during the final dungeon of the game resembled the Virgin Mary. Whether this similarity was intentional in the Japanese version, or whether there was concern over religious sensitivity in the West is unknown, but the statue was redesigned overseas, completely removing the possible resemblance. Number 8, save points. Time for another graphical change, and this one is something that you will see much more of during the course of the game. This being the save point icons, which in Japan displayed the letter S and the word save underneath, whilst in the West this was curiously replaced with the icon for Soldier, Shinra's elite fighting force that Zack & Co work for. Number 7, difficulty modes. Those of you who refuse to play your games on anything but the hardest difficulty would have been out of luck if stuck with the Japanese version, as unlike in the West there was 0 difficulty options. Overseas, however, hard mode was added and is available to pick right from the start, which ramps up the difficulty fairly considerably. Number 6, game over conditions. Now whilst the Japanese version lacks hard mode, there was still one way that it was actually more challenging than Western versions, and this is what happens when you receive a game over. In the English versions, you will return to the last save points but still keep all of the spoils from the failed mission, and this even applies to the hard difficulty. Over in Japan on the other hand, you simply return back to the main menu menu with all progress completely lost. Furthermore, in the English version, this leaves the game open to a number of exploits, with one popular one being to steal an infinite number of Phoenix Downs from the game's super boss, dying and then repeating. These Phoenix Downs can then be used for their powerful effects, used in Materia Fusion or sold for big profit. Number 5. Tifa and Cloud at the Nebul Reactor. When Zack and Sephiroth are investigating Nebul Reactor, Tifa and Cloud should be waiting outside. This event is also depicted in the main Final Fantasy VII game, and their presence is an important part of the story. However, despite this, if you exited the reactor early in the Japanese version of the game, Tifa and Cloud would have been nowhere to be found. The devs managed to spot this oversight for the English release though, and not only added them outside, but also gave them dialogue. Number 4. Nibelheim Arrows. Sticking with the Nibelheim area, numerous signs pointing towards Nebul Reactor and Shinra Mansion had their arrows pointing the completely wrong ways, which could have been a little confusing. These were fixed for the English release, but not completely. Strangely, these were only fixed during the daytime maps, as when visiting these locations during the night, the Japanese versions of the signs are for some reason still used. Number 3. Tonberry Attack. The Tonberry is one of the most famous enemies in the entire Final Fantasy franchise, having made an appearance in most Final Fantasy games ever since way back in Final Fantasy V. In Crisis Core, the popular creature returns as one of the game's summons, which depicts the creature in this comical animation where it trips over as it makes its way to battle, yet inadvertently still ends up stabbing the enemy with its powerful stab attack. Whilst in the English version, the attack causes a speech bubble with an exclamation mark and a question mark to pop up, over in Japan it is instead Japanese text that reads Pusu. This isn't a Japanese word, but the Pusu sound is supposed to represent the sounds that the knife makes, and for some interesting context, this same sound has been used in other Final Fantasy games. For example, in Final Fantasy VIII, when the Tonberry is again used as a summon, the sound Pusu will appear in the Japanese version, whilst in English this got changed to Doink. Number 2. Dialogue and facial animations. A couple of scenes in the English release were voiced that weren't in the original Japanese release. Furthermore, the devs also put in some touches throughout the game to the lip movements to better sync up with the English voices. And then it seems whilst the devs were fixing this up, they also played around with a few other things, such as this pretty obscure change during Zack's date with Aerith. It seems that having his hair slightly obscuring his face really bothered somebody on the dev team, and so it was kept brushed back over in the West, like so. Number 1. Camera angles. And then for our final change is the game's camera angles, which saw some pretty drastic changes at times when the game was released outside of Japan. Most missions had changes made to the camera positioning, with some having bigger changes than others. However, the trend is that in the Japanese version the camera faces downwards more, whilst overseas the camera is further behind Zack. The camera being behind the player makes it easier to see into the distance and look out for enemies and treasure, which is possibly why it got changed when the game was shipped out for Western players. But what do you think of the changes mentioned in the video? As always, please let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and a big thanks again to our sponsors at NordPass. NordPass are not only really helping the channel out, but are also offering a really great product and with a great free trial and discount, and so go check out the link in the description if that's something you're interested in, and until next time, thank you for watching.